Hello, everybody. It's me, Vic Gilgers, and this is episode 24 Hypnotherapy Stories. Now, I'm going to briefly explain about hypnotherapy and give some stories on it and my view, just my view. And by the way, I do these, as I always say, to help you um, get on better with your life and also myself. So it's about well-being, it's about happiness, mental health, that type of thing. So thank you for listening. So I'll make a start on this. Now, I'm going back quite a few years now, for perhaps more than 15 years. But I got trained as a hypnotherapist and got a sticky foot for it. And then I practiced it for a year. When I say practice, I had paid clients, and I think I mostly had successes with it. I stopped doing it in the end because I felt it was a bit of a solitary thing, just me and another person in a room, where that person, with all due respect to everybody, including myself here, had issues, and I was there to use hypnotherapy as a means of them. I won't say transcending, but kind of easing their issues and living a better life. And as I said, I had proof that it worked from the clients who gave me some feedback, and yeah, so that's that. Now, I my experience of being hypnotized was, and I knew, I think then I had been, I can't remember whether I'd been trained or not, but I went on holiday to, I forgot where I went on holiday, but went on holiday with the wife and grandkids, and there was a hypnotism show, whatever it was. And this guy, so a few of us went on the stage to be hypnotized, and this guy came along to each of us and whispered something in our ear, which to me was unintelligible. And then he went down the line again, and well, for some reason or other, he picked certain people out to stay on the stage, and with me, he said, "Go and sit down." But nonetheless, although I was part of the audience, I did, participate myself, listening to what he said. Anyway, what he did was he put people into a trance, and then went along the line and asked certain people to do certain things. And as an example, the West example, I suppose, is or the most evident of hypnosis example is a young lady who got up and he asked her to dance around, and he asked her to take a jumper off, which she did, and dance around, and everybody was wondering where this was going to go. But it went as far as that. And so it was all a bit of a laugh and, good fun. The second time I was involved with it was at it was whilst I was being trained. I've just remembered the hypnotherapy trainer put on a session, put on a meal for us at this hotel, where a hypnotherapist came along and put everybody into a trance, and then asked a person to come up on the stage and gave this person a shoebox, what was a shoebox, but said there was a bomb inside the shoebox, and that they had to go outside the hotel, leave it outside, or tell the staff or something that it had to be diffused, and then come back. And so it was a bit of a laugh, but not a laugh, if you see what I mean, a bit daft. And later on, I talked to this person, and they said that well, I knew this person, and I said, surely you didn't think that there was a bomb in the box. And he said, oh no, I just went along with it. So I was a bit disappointed in that to have happened whilst I was training. But going back to does it work, doesn't it work, and what is it and what isn't it? Well, I felt that I could not be easily hypnotised, although in my training, the therapist did hypnotise me and said that I'd said certain things, which I did, whilst I was in a trance state, and I'm not so sure about that. So what I'm saying is that I think certain people, well, certainly in my experience of having clients, when I did this for nearly years, I said they did appear to, well, they did go into a trance, and it did have some positive effect on them, because that's what I was doing. A lot of after my training, it was at the time many years ago when people were trying to stop smoking, so a lot of people did it for that, and it worked. And I know some people who were smokers and it just didn't work for them, but obviously some people it did, and maybe that's because they paid a lot of money for it, so we're going to not be adversarial about it. And yeah, so, but my take on it, and some people did it as well as for smoking, past life regression. What else was I can't remember, but I did it for well-being. So that what I would do is, and this is how it works. It works from calming the mind down, the brain down. So, and there's a lot of research on this, and it's very interesting research. Sigmund Freud, he started his practice based on an earlier experience with observing a hypnotist who could apparently cure people of their ailments. And so he saw this particular practice, from what I've read, of somebody laying on a couch, and the therapist, the hypnotherapist or hypnosis person talking to the subject, and then the subject, when they came out of this kind of trance, appeared, whatever pain it was, I can't remember, a shoulder or a leg, appeared to have gone. And what Freud did was, he didn't look at or take up the hypnosis part of it. It took up the talking part of it, which was talking therapy. So as I say, there's lots of interesting reading from Mesmer, or mesmerised people, and it can seem a little bit woo-woo. It isn't woo-woo. It's interesting, and it can work. Yeah. So yeah. Oh yes. I was talking about how it works. Well. And there's research done on this, I don't know if I said that, whereby when people are put into a trance state, which we would call hypnosis, their brain waves alter, and this has been measured, from a beta state to an alpha state, which is a much more relaxed state of the mind. There is a theta state, which is apparently a very deep a level of consciousness. So we're going in, this is my words here, that when the mind is relaxed, the critical thinking part, which is, oh, I'm not accepting this, or I don't believe in that, goes away, and it is more accepting of what is being said. And I mean, on the worst side of this, and you could call it brainwashing. You could put in nasty thoughts to people, and maybe they may start accepting these nasty thoughts. But obviously, I mean, there is a lot more to hypnosis. I mean, when you look at hypnotherapy, there is much more to it than just hypnosis. You've got to know what you're doing with people. You've got to be insured. You've got to be trained. You've got to have experience before you take on your first client. And as I say, I did this many years ago, and yeah. So what I think it is that your mind becomes in a relaxed state, and how it is done is you have what is called a deepener. And the one I used to use, when I say a deepener script. So the one I used to use is where I got the subject to lie down, or the client to lie down and relax, close their eyes. And then what I did was I went right through their body from the top of their head to the tips of their toes, talking about, the shoulders and the chest and the tummy and the hips and so on, the legs, right down to the ankles, to the feet. And you're using very relaxing words like down, going down, further, further, further. And you've got to have the right type of voice for this, which comes after a bit of practice. So with this kind of going down and just releasing and relaxing, the mind alters its state, and to a state which is accepting and less critical of what is being said. It is open-mindedness, clear-mindedness. And so after the deepener script, I used what would be called a hypnosis script, which was about happiness and positive living, helpful living. And it seemed to have good effects. So I'll give you a couple of examples. There was one lady came to me who was frightened of flying, and she wanted to go abroad to see her family. And she was that frightened once she got sat on the aeroplane that she would not go to the toilet. She would not leave her seat. So, and I'm not trying to be vulgar here, but she peed herself. Because she daren't go to the toilet. She was so frightened. She was sat there in the flight in fear. Anyway, so I basically did a script, well, relaxed her, and then did a script around carefree flying. And by the way, I used to work in the aircraft industry. I worked there for many years. And so I knew quite a lot about aeroplanes and how they worked and how they didn't work. The sad side is that I mainly knew how they didn't work and what could go wrong. But I didn't tell her that. And so, yeah, no, I told her it was beautiful. and the truth is, flying is the safest way to travel. The safest way to travel in the world. Safer than anything. Cars, bicycles, motorbikes, etc. etc. Excuse me. Right. So, anyway, so I did this, and she went on holiday, flew, and quite enjoyed the flight because she told me afterwards. So it works. It worked in that sense. So that's, I'll just tell you another story now. I've got plenty of stories, but I will just tell you another story. The other story is of a young woman who came to see me, who, she was now married to her second husband. And what she said was that when she was making love, having sex with him, everything was spoilt because all of a sudden, instead of seeing her husband's face that she was now married to, she, in her mind's eye, saw her first husband's face, and it immediately put her off. Well, you can imagine, and it spoiled her sex life. And so, I mean, this was a big deal. This had to be handled very carefully because you're dealing with people's emotions, real people with real issues. And that is a real problem. Now, anyway, so I, kind of looked into this, and I managed to develop a suitable script, which basically contained a lot of what I call rumpy bumpy, kind of very suggestive things that two people might do. But during this, I got her to transfer in her mind anything coming through about her previous husband, and just to whatever it was happened, focus on her present husband. So it was just like a reframing, but under hypnosis. And I say reframing under hypnosis, meaning swapping this for this, swapping a bad thing for a good thing, but making it believable because I got past her critical mind. And it does, it goes into the subconscious. Now, I'm not saying I understand about the subconscious, but I'm saying there is some part of us which kind of, and I think there are varying degrees of this. There is some part of us where when we put some new beliefs into it, into our consciousness, it believes instead of saying, oh no, that can't be possible. So instead of her saying, oh no, I'm always going to have see my previous husband when we're making love, this was, no, you're not. You're going to see your existing husband who you love, and you'll have good sex and all the rest of it. So this is what I did. And well, in fact, before I started with it, I said to her what I was going to do. Is it kind of going to get a bit, cheeky with the script? And she said to me, "Well, I'm a woman of the world, so crack on," type of thing. So I did. Anyway, when I finished, most clients they like to stay there, laid down with their eyes closed and relaxed. In fact, sometimes they relax that much, you've got to kind of nudge them awake, as it were, bring them back into the room because, they've been there quite a long while, or they've maybe got to pick the kids up from school. So, in this case, she just lay there smiling, and I coughed and kind of touched her shoulder and said, like, are you okay? Well, sorry, yeah, I've got this bit wrong. That's what I normally did. But as before I got to that stage, after the session, the hypnosis session, she just leapt up and I leapt up, stood up and said, oh, well, I'm going. And so I kind of a bit surprised about this, said, have you got to pick the kids up or something? She says, no. She says, I'm going because I can't wait to get my hands on my husband. So he was... This guy was in for a treat, or a bit of a shock and then a treat. So, yeah, it does work. I won't give any more stories out for the moment. I might do that in future podcasts. But, I mean, and I've got to say at this stage that I had one client where it just didn't work. And that's the way it goes. I managed to get around it a little bit. Well, I did in the end. But some people are more susceptible than others, and that doesn't mean anything wrong with them or right with them. It just means that, at some time in our lives, in fact, many times in our lives, we are all hypnotized. When you go and watch a film and really get into the film and see what's going on, or read a book, or you're hypnotised. It's as simple as that. Your mind is taken to another place which you really believe in, and all the rest of it. That's why, for example, when I like going to the pictures, I love it. But I get real annoyed when somebody walks in front of me, or goes to the toilet, or brings in an ice cream, because it just takes me out of the trance that you're in with the film, that your mind is absorbed with something that it's really getting into. And that can be a good thing, really good thing. When you've got some... years ago, and I can never remember the title of the film, someone in a room saw a picture on a wall, and it was of a field, like a golden barley field. And the camera came closer to the picture. Then all of a sudden, whoever it was, well, the observer, you or me, were in that field and then walking across the field and had all sorts of adventures. And the adventures actually were going to hell and what was going on in hell, an imagined hell, of course, and then coming out of it and coming into the sunlight and in effect living a heavenly life. It was a really interesting film, very thoughtful film. And, certainly, daydreaming or trance work can get us into this kind of nice state. So I don't know if I can say much more on hypnosis. I've used it on many occasions, and I'll go into that later. Let me just, I don't want to put a spoiler on this, but I talk about the principles, don't I? And so the principles, I think, goes into a deeper understanding of how this works, and doesn't kind of insist or go on about being put into a trance to get a better feeling, because it says that you already have that inside of you, and but for your thoughts, you're there. So that's that. There's something else just popped into my mind and then popped out of my mind. Oh yeah, it's of this deeper levels of the beta to the alpha and the theta. Now, I occasionally, well, all of us dream, and sometimes when I have a dream, I see my wife and my father, not in the same dream, and more often than not, and I don't have many dreams like that, they are just there. I don't have any reaction. I don't look at my father, who died years ago, and say, "Oh, Dad, you're there. How are you doing? You know, crikey, what's this? Where are you? You know, what's it like?" And I don't say that to my wife. I just accept that they're there, and I'm in some situation with them, getting on with whatever we're doing, and then I wake up. So there is no emotional reaction. And to me, that is hinting at the principles a little bit, because the principles talks about pure consciousness, and pure consciousness just doesn't have a take, it is just aware. And by the way, I won't go into any depth on this, but we are just pure consciousness. We are aware. We all know that, and that is an energy of consciousness, awareness that we have. And the only snag with it all, not with that, but the fact is that once we become aware of something, our mind has a take on it, and either if it likes it, it's happy. If it doesn't like it, it reacts to it adversely, and so we can get stressed and all the rest of it. So that's what the principles goes on about. So what I'm saying is that this consciousness thing is what the hypnotherapists or hypnotists knew about. And I think there are certain people whose energy can interact with another person's energy in a way where they, by using the right voice, using the right words, well, look at the word "I love you," crikey. You know, look at what that can do to people. So it just shows you what a statement or a word can do. Look at the words of Jesus. Look at the effect that that's had. So, you know, it's killing, well, that song, "Killing Me Softly with Your Words," is very true. So that is what is used in hypnosis, and it is effective with certain people. I'm trying to think of that place where I was on holiday. Can't remember. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I'm just going to have a quick look at my notes to see if there's anything that I've missed out on here. Oh yeah, I meant to mention this book by a chap called Sailor Bob Adamson, and the book is called "What's Wrong with Right Now If You Don't Think About It." So I'm going now on to a bit more of the principle stuff, and this is kind of on from the principles, is really saying, you know, if in the now we're all okay, but we're okay until we start thinking about stuff. And so there's a lot in that. And the book does go on to say that we are more than our thoughts. We are not our thoughts, really, but our thoughts try to tell us that, and we think they are because they're our thoughts. So that's just an extension of this. But that's earlier part is all about hypnosis and what goes on. Yeah, so yeah, well, I've got here, there are other useful ways for calming the mind, like meditation, massage, hydrotherapy. Yeah, so there are all sorts of ways where we can calm the mind. My daughter mentioned this flotation chamber where you're devoid of all sensual outside stimuli like noise or smells or what have you. So you're just with your being. And obviously, and I think, I've never done it, it could be very calming indeed. So all is not lost. There are ways for us to get out of our mind into a better frame of mind. It works. What more can I say? It works. I hope that you've learnt something from this. I'm certainly, well, I was an expert and I did do it many years ago. I've not practiced it for years, but it's something that I hope I've informed you about, that can be useful information to you in your kind of look-see at living a better life, which is quite possible. It is. All you've got to do is get this out of the way and kind of sniff the breeze and enjoy life, because you'll know what to do when you have to do something without having to run it through all this kind of misery machine sometimes. Because if you kind of let it be and train it a little bit, it will look more to helping you, because it will look to being in touch with who you really are. And yeah. Okay. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.